Hello and welcome to Professional Email and Text Messages by Lucinda Atwood. What is effective email? Effective email is brief and clear, it's easy to skim and scan, and it's written from the reader's point of view. Why is that important? Because brief and clear supports skim and scan reading, it saves time and energy, and it reduces errors. And possibly most important, it impacts your reputation. If your email messages are clear and brief, people will think of you as competent and respectful. If they're long or unclear, if you make the reader work to understand, they'll think of you as unprofessional and disrespectful. So we know brief, clear emails are important. How do we do it? Let's dive in. Before even writing, consider your audience. Stop for a minute and think about what's their culture and communication style. I'm not going to read all the words here. You can pause this and go through it on your own time. Think about your readers' needs and wants. What do they need to know, want to know, already know, not want to know? How much background information is needed? Also think about what's interests your reader and what's distracting them. Where are they? What size screen are they reading this on? Are they sitting and reading your message or glancing at it on their phone while they walk down the hall between messages? Thinking about that helps you consider what to include and what kind of wording and tone and style to use. What else do you need to do? You need to make a good first impression. Always use an appropriate email address. On the screen, you'll see some examples of appropriate email addresses. Those they're easy to read and they sound professional. We don't want to use inappropriate or confusing email addresses like the ones on the screen. If yours is like that, get a new one. They're free. You also want to organize your content to enable skim and scan reading. And this is the format for a professional email. We start number one with a subject line, and then in the body of the email, we have the greeting. Paragraph 1 is the goodwill statement and most important information. Paragraph 2 is important details. Paragraph 3 is any other necessary information. And then in the last paragraph, we have the close and call to action. And then we end our email with our sign off. Let's dive in and look at those in detail. Number one, your subject line. A lot of people in business archive their emails, so if you make subject lines that are searchable, they will love you. All subject lines should be brief, clear, and really informative. Here are some great examples. You'll see them on the screen. Do you see it's almost like an executive summary of the entire email, and then they can open the email to find the details. A great subject line helps the reader decide if they're going to read your email and when. You're helping them prioritize their work, so they will appreciate that. Here are some email or some subject lines that don't work well. These ones don't have enough information and they're useless. They're a little frustrating for the reader. And these ones are examples. They're far too long. They'll get cut off and they make you look a bit unprofessional. So subject line should be about 5 words or fewer. All right, let's look at the next thing. In the body of our email, we start with a greeting. Dear is always appropriate. It can sound overly friendly if you're not used to this, but it is a standard. If you don't know the person, use their first and last name. In this example, Dear Jane Smith. If you've met the person, if you know them, you can use just their first name. In Western settler business practices, we tend not to use those prefixes of Mr., Mrs., Dr., Miss. We avoid that kind of stuff. Hello is slightly less formal than dear, but it's acceptable 99% of the time. Hi is informal, and using an exclamation point is also informal. It adds a sense of friendliness. If you know the person's job title but not their name, especially if you're sending a cover letter and resume, Dear Hiring Manager is 100% appropriate. That always works. If you know the person likes to use their title, for example, doctor, then you can include it, Dear Dr. Smith. And if you want to be really informal, if you're announcing a team meeting, you can say things like, hey team, and use an exclamation point. But this is informal. Some inappropriate greetings are to whom it may concern. Do not use this. There are a couple of times where this is appropriate, but 99.9% of the time it is not appropriate. It sounds like you've done no research, and it's also old-fashioned. Speaking of old-fashioned, dear sir or madam is really outdated. We also like to avoid gendered writing in business. If you are not sure of someone's gender identity and you use a wrong one, it can be quite offensive. Which brings me to the last one. I get emails that say, Dear Sir. It shows me again that the writer they've done no research. They know nothing about me. I'm probably not even going to read their email. So again, use the title if you can't find the name. All right, we've got a great greeting. Let's move on to our first paragraph. We start with a goodwill statement and most important information. Your goodwill statement is it's a courtesy really more than anything, and we want to keep it not too personal. Here's some examples if you look at them on the screen. And again, you can pause this to look at these in more detail. Our second sentence in the first paragraph is the most important information. It's going to be similar to your subject line. Tell the reader what is your email about. And here are some examples again on the screen. You can pause this to look at them in detail. All right. Here are some examples of good greetings and first paragraphs. And again, the first paragraph you'll see has the goodwill statement and then the most important information. So again, you might want to pause this and take the time to read them. Meanwhile, I'm going to move on. After our first paragraph, we move into paragraph 2, which is the important details. So you've told the reader perhaps that you're going to have a meeting. They might need to know the date, time, and location. You might want to tell them, why are you meeting? What's on the agenda? Any special instructions? You might include the results of something that you've announced in the first paragraph. And you always want in paragraph 2, in all your paragraphs, you want to write and format them so that they're easy to skim and scan. Make it brief, clear, and direct. Avoid wordiness. Delete any word that's not doing something, it's not providing information. Use common words, short sentences, and short paragraphs. If you're using AI to help you write emails, double check them because AI tends to be quite impersonal and use kind of pompous words. And we love lists in business writing. We love headings. It makes it easy to skim and scan. So I can scan down and say, oh, agenda, oh, instructions. And that might be the information I'm looking for. So then in paragraph 3, we're going to add any other necessary information. Maybe you need to supply special instructions or give the context or background information. You might mention that there's some pre-reading. If you're including attachments, mention them here. People will not read attachments if you don't mention them. We don't like clicking on things that we don't know about. And if you want to add words of encouragement or support or appreciation, again, put it in this final paragraph. It's nice, but not the most important thing. And again, we want to write in format so that it's easy to skim and scan. Now, after all our beautiful email, we're going to close paragraph 4. This will be our close and call to action. Close ends the message briefly and clearly. For example, you'll see on the screen some examples. Thank you for helping out with this. Thank you for letting me know, that kind of thing. And then your second sentence will be the call to action. Tell the reader what you want them to do. And again, on the screen, you'll see some good examples. Almost every email ends with a call to action. Things like, I hope to see you there, if it's a meeting announcement, or please let me know. And if you don't have a call to action, you might just say, is that the information you need? Or if you're being informal, you could say something like, have a great weekend. Next, we have some examples of this final paragraph with the close and the call to action. And again, you'll see that those are short sentences and short paragraph. Again, very clear, very easy because it's the very last thing for the reader to notice. If your call to action is buried, it's less likely to get acted on. Excuse me. Okay, and then the very last thing we're going to do is have your sign off and your name. And your sign off is always followed by a comma. In Western business culture, we love regards, so any warm regards, best regards, kind regards, any kind of regards is fine. Slightly less formal is best or kindly or warmly. And you can, if it's appropriate, you can say thank you. Cheers is, it tends to be more more British, but I've heard it from places around the world. It's very informal, but it's also friendly, so it's meant to build connection. Sincerely is a little bit old-fashioned, but it's fine. One, and then write your name underneath. So you might say best regards, comma, and then on the line directly underneath that is your name. So here are some examples of the close call to action, the sign off, and the person's name. And again, if you need more time, just pause this video and you can read those closely. Some quick pro tips about emails. If you're adding attachments, if you add the attachment before you write the email, you're more likely to remember to include it. It's always embarrassing to mention an attachment and then have to send a second email saying, sorry, here's the attachment. I like to check attachments before I send, just to make sure I'm actually sending the correct attachment and that it's still there. If you are using attachments, give them clear file names that are easy for the reader to understand. I strongly recommend if you're sending attachments, send them in PDF format. Ones that are in document format sometimes can change. I've seen them lose content and get really odd spacing. PDFs bake the cake. Everything's there, including the fonts, so it can help you make sure that you look professional. And then I strongly recommend proofread your message before sending. All right, that wraps up emails. Let's take a quick look at professional text messages. With professional text messages, you want to be thinking, again, we want to keep it really brief and clear. Just think, what does the reader need and want to know? Your writing style, again, very brief, clear, direct. However, unlike personal text messages, we use full words, correct grammar, capitalization, and punctuation. So a professional text message is less formal than an email, but still more formal than a personal text message. I recommend avoid emojis unless you know the reader really well, and avoid wordiness. All right, let's look at how to format our message. We start with a greeting, so it might be, hi, Sue, or hello, Sue Jones. And then on the same line, add your name if you don't think they'll recognize your number. If you text back and forth all the time, they'll know who you are. But if you're not sure, just let them know. Don't make them guess. And then add your content. Again, maybe 2 or 3 sentences tops. It should be very short. If you do need to make it longer, use short paragraphs. Some people prefer to send sequential messages, which are like paragraphs. And then at the end, close it. Just something like thank you or see you there. There is no sign off. Here are some examples. And again, you might want to pause to take a look at them. But notice that they're all in the same line, the same paragraph. We've kept them as short as possible, and we do use punctuation. I know you don't like it, but it's the way it's done right now. So there you go. Today we talked about professional email and text messages. Thank you so much.